I was born in 1931 in Elizabeth, New Jersey, at Mrs. Quinn's lying-in facility. My mother was the kindest woman in the world to me and to everyone else that she met. She had a tremendous compassion for people who had need or were down and out, and she's always there to give them a good word and give them a hug. When we were kids, my mom and dad would sit down and we would sing, and Mom would play the ukulele or the guitar, and we would sing all kinds of songs. Some of them I still remember, and those were beautiful times together. We didn't have a TV, and we only listened to the radio for Fibber, McGee, and Molly, and various other sitcoms, I guess you call them that. I had two siblings, one a sister, Marilyn, who was about 3 years younger than I. The other was a boy, Wayne, about 5 years younger than I. We had a very close family, and I was the oldest child. When I was a young child and wondering about life, I asked my dad, "Why am I?" But my dad, a self-proclaimed agnostic, could not answer my question, except for periodic visits to Sunday school and an occasional church service. My early life was void of the gospel. In my teenage years, I was still searching, and I read the Robe, the Silver Chalice, that sparked my interest in spiritual things. They caused me to think about the life and struggles of Christians in the past and the fierceness of God's crucifixion. My interest was intensified by a course at VU on comparative Christianity. While attending Valparaiso University, I found myself sitting in the library with one of Bev's sorority sisters and a friend of mine from high school. In walks Beverly, and I said to my friend, "Who is that girl?" And she said, "That's Beverly Rodek. Isn't she a doll?" And I said, "Yeah." And then it took me almost a year and a half to get up enough nerve to ask her out, because we never had any kind of a introduction whatsoever. But I saw her one more time at the day of matriculation in the gymnasium, and she was all tan from the summer. And I said, I'm going to ask her out one way or the other. So I called her, and I had even practiced my speech. But when I got her on the phone, I didn't remember a word of it. And I just blurted out, in order for her to identify who I was, I mentioned another girl in her sorority that I had dated. She said, "Oh, now I know you." I said, "Will you go out with me?" She said, "Yes." And that's how it started. Bev and I were married December 26, 1954. I remember when we lived in Griffith, we had our first snow for Gail. She was standing at the window, and I was shoveling the snow, and she was having a fit. stop that shoveling. She didn't want her sense of order to be disturbed. She wanted the snow to be pristine. Darrell, when we were going through Chesterton, just a little boy, and we stopped at a gas station, and they had a car up on one of those lifts, and he got out of the car and pointed to that thing and asked the proprietor, "What is that car doing up that high?" The proprietor really got a kick out of him and had a little car and gave him a ride in the little car, and he wanted a picture. We took a picture of it. We lived in St. John, and I was sick with pneumonia, flat on my back in bed. And Jody came upstairs, and she had a picture for me that she had drawn, and it was a picture of a dog all dressed up, and she said, "Look, Daddy, here's a dog." Joel was with us at one of the lakes in Minnesota. I forget the name of it. I think it was Cass Lake. And we were fishing for walleyes, Joel and Darrell and myself. And Darrell and I weren't having too much luck catching anything for that matter. And Joel was catching one perch after another. Put them on a stringer and they were real good eating. But Joe reminded both myself and Darrell, "I outfished you, didn't I?" Yeah, Jason, when I took him fishing, he was just a little boy, and I think he was like in kindergarten or something. And he hooked this bluegill, and he swung it in and it landed on the deck of a pier, and he dropped the fishing pole and ran off the pier. To this day, he's been afraid of fish. Jared, when we were home all together, and I had just come home with a whole batch of coho, and I made some up for myself, and I said, "This is just like chicken." And I asked the whole group if they would like a bite of it, and nobody responded except Jared came in the kitchen, and he says, "Grandpa, I'll eat the chicken." Renee was a student at South Haven Christian, and I don't know, I think it was the 8th grade, and there was a father-daughter dance, and so I got all dressed up and I took Renee out on a date, and that was really a fun time, even though I don't do too well dancing. When Zach was in kindergarten, there was a show and tell, and there was also Grandfather and Grandmother Day. So we went for the Grandparents' Day, and so Zach introduced me first, and he said, "This is my grandpa. He's funny." Mallory had these rollerblade skates, and I was visiting their house, and I tried them on, and I almost killed myself. Emily was visiting our house one time, and there were all kinds of people here, and I had to go on an errand. I said, Emily, would you like to go along? She said yes. She jumped right in the car and went with me. We had a great time. I saw Mark play football, and I marveled at the way he played. He was a good player. I believe his position was end. And the most thrilling part about it was that we're neighbors, and his father and mother and his grandparents on the other side, they were all cheering for Mark. It was a great experience. Nikki was always the live wire of Daryl and Julie's family. Not that the others weren't alive and well, but Nikki was one of these persons that you would think if she had long sleeves, she'd certainly roll them up, because she was always moving from one thing to the next. Ryan was the all-around athlete. He played baseball and basketball. When he started to play football, it was really serious, and it was a great thing to watch his games. And we saw his game in college too, and he was playing linebacker in college and quarterback in high school, and he a great young man. Okay, with Brienne now, she was always the talker, and she and I and Renee used to take walks when we lived over on Cherrywood in Valpo, and I would ask them questions, and Brienne would say, if there was a lull in the conversation, she would say, Grandpa, ask us some more questions, please. Kaylee was amazed over my hands. These hands matured long before I did. And she was playing with her, not a classmate, just a friend she had. And they lived over on Michigan Avenue in Valpo. And I was coming out, and she introduced me to her girlfriend, and then she said, look at his hands. Mitchell was quite an inquisitive young man, and even before he was in grade school, I believe, there was a truck outside of his home, and I don't know how he got the keys to that truck, but he started it, and it started to roll. And all the construction men came out and had to stop him and get him out of the truck. But I think they also were amazed that a kid that young could start a truck and drive it. Jude, when we would visit his home in Kenosha, I'd take him out and we'd hit balls and play a little softball together. And then when Bev and I would leave, he would run to the end of the block to follow the car. Never will forget that. Joel and I drove all the way to Lafayette, Indiana, and we went to a restaurant, and we had a nice feed, and it was to celebrate Luke's birthday. and Luke was known as the genius of the family. We were visiting Cara in their new home now. Cara wanted to go and buy a new pair of slacks. And I said, well, Cara, I'll be happy to go with you to help you pick out a pair of trousers. And she said, well, as long as you said trousers, I'd prefer you not come with me. Bev and I became very active in our church. Bev played the organ, taught Sunday school, and sang in the choir. I took positions as treasurer, secretary, chairman of the voters, and elder. One day I asked our pastor if there was more to Christianity than all the activity. He replied, your answer to that question must come through your own personal seeking and searching. As I began to seek the Lord, His word became real and true, like a personal letter written for me. I was aware of the Holy Spirit's presence in my life, not only to convict me of sin, but to teach me and empower me, whereby Jesus became more and more real in my life. God so loved Harlan Swift that He gave His only begotten Son, that if Harlan believed in Him, he would have everlasting life.